Georgia lawyers Bob and Irreverent D talk law. Listen up for stories about how things really happen in our legal system. Who are these guys? Dwayne Singleton, Irreverent D, is a criminal defense attorney in the state of Georgia. Benjamin O. Benson, aka Bob, is a personal injury attorney in Atlanta. On today's episode, Bob drops a bomb.
My name is not technically Bob.
Then he gets snooty.
We're here for the, oh God, wait.
God, you're terrible.
So
oh my
easy.
gosh.
Then he has to apologize. Now, sit back and take a listen as Bob and Irreverent D talk law.
You want to take us in this time?
Sure. We're here for the, oh God, wait.
God, you're terrible.
So
oh my
easy.
gosh.
You
Like
make it
you
seem so
like
simple.
really, it is once you have a script,
Yeah.
and you have to do it, like suddenly, you could be talking to people for days and days, and then all of a sudden the camera is on, and you have to say a specific thing, and you're like,
Right.
welcome to the Bob and Irreverent D podcast. We're so glad that you joined us today.
That's Bob. I'm Irreverent D.
Yes, and this is Brian Cunha. He is here with us from Slappy and Sadd. Not a joke.
A real law firm.
Real law firm. I worked at
yeah.
Slappy and Sadd for many years before I started my own practice. Love those people. Great people.
Didn't a certain television personality used to talk about y'all?
Man. Good Morning America, Jay Leno, Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel,
recently.
right?
Yeah, that was a more recent one, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Slappy
it's
and
a
Sadd.
great name for a law firm.
It's memorable.
Yeah.
You know, been hurt real bad?
Slappy and Sadd.
Call
Slappy
Slappy
and
and
Sadd.
Sadd.
There you go.
Seriously.
Seriously.
Thank you for joining us. If you are looking for a criminal defense attorney and you're anywhere in the state of Georgia, particularly in the Atlanta or South Atlanta area, you need to call Dwayne Singleton of the Dwayne Singleton Trial Group.
Close enough.
Right, Trial Lawyers Group.
There we go.
Recently rebranded. I don't have it quite fully committed to memory.
And this is the easiest firm to remember, Bob Law, the Bob Law Firm.
That's right.
Here in Atlanta, Georgia, if you're hurt in a wreck, he'll get you a big fat check.
Oh, please don't
Hey,
say
all right.
that.
What?
Oh.
What?
No,
It's
we
true.
hate that kind of
No?
marketing. No.
Okay, all
If you
right.
want it, if you've been injured and you want to make sure that your case is handled the right way, you call me. My name is not technically Bob. You know, did I ever tell you the story about why we chose Bob Law Firm? The thing is that people can't spell my last name. Like
Sometimes I can't even pronounce
I had
it.
the same problem. Yeah.
Sometimes my dad doesn't even pronounce it right, and it's his name. So
Everybody at my office calls it different.
Yeah. Great. Benson.
Yeah.
I go into court. The judge looks up and says, "Now calling the case of blah blah blah, blah, blah versus blah 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 attorney." How do you say that? I'm like, Your Honor, I say it fast. Benson. Anyway, so we chose Bob Law Firm because Bob's just my initials, right? B-O-B.
I love it.
Yeah, and
Looks great on hats.
Looks great on hats. It looks great on all of our whatever our marketing and everything. But like also like once you hear it, it's like Slappy and Sadd.
Right.
It's memorable.
Once
In
you
there.
hear it, you cannot unremember Bob Law Firm. That's right. Anyways, all right. So today we're going to be covering in the news. We're going to be covering an often overlooked subject matter, workers' compensation. And Brian is our resident expert on workers' compensation and all workers' compensation issues, including the most recent legislative package that was enacted by the state legislature and signed apparently by the governor. Is that right?
That's how it works.
Pretty big changes, right?
Yeah, we've got some significant changes that hopefully will help some folks in Georgia workers' comp. We'll see.
So, first of all, how exactly does the workers' compensation law get put in place?
Interesting. So just like any other law, right? The legislature's somebody's gonna introduce a bill, one of the legislators, and it gets passed. But before that, a lot of these legislators they're not workers' comp experts. It's very rare that I think there's one guy maybe that did workers' comp
Right.
work.
There's one guy.
They're probably all business owners, so they're like, I hate having workers' comp.
Farmers,
Right.
whoever,
That's right. That's right. Bankers. Yeah, exactly.
So not workers' comp experts by any means.
Right.
And so there's actually an advisory council, which is composed of several different folks in the industry, kind of on both sides, right? There's claimants attorneys, which are the folks that represent the injured worker, right? There's
Okay.
defense attorneys that represent the insurance companies. There's insurance company, executives. There's adjusters. There's nurse case managers. There's doctors that are
Okay.
all kind of picked and selected and put on this advisory committee, and they all get together and say, hey, there's this one law that we don't really like. And so they hash it out and they figure out, well, what do we need to do to make changes to it, right? It might be presented by one side or the other. There might be some opposition. There usually is from one side or the other. But the goal of that is to try to come up with some changes to the law, because it's an ever-changing thing, as it needs to be, that they will basically present to the legislature in order for them to vote on and make those changes.
So what you're saying is that the people on opposite sides from each other are sitting down and hammering out something that they can live with,
That's basically it. Yeah.
and then telling the legislature, okay, we all have given this our blessing.
Yeah, that's the goal of it.
The goal of it.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily work that way every time, but that's the goal of it.
So once again, the people are not voting, we're going to increase this or we're going to change this. This is where we're getting together as a committee, making a determination, proposing a bill. Everybody votes on it and passes it.
Essentially. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, I mean, they are our elected officials,
Yeah.
right? So in particular, this legislative update, like, what's included in it?
Well, there's an increase to the maximum compensation rate.
What is that?
So that's, if you get hurt at work, they're supposed to pay you, while you're out of work, they pay you 2/3 of your average weekly wage. Okay?
Okay.
However,
Why only 2/3? I mean, if I was earning $1,200 a week, shouldn't I get $1,200 a week?
I think you should. But
You would.
but you don't, because under the law you only get 2/3. I mean, what's the reasoning behind that? Well, you're not working, so you're not, gaining money for your employer. You're not benefiting them. Sure, but on top of that, they don't take taxes out.
Right, you're not paying taxes
You're not
on
paying
it, right?
taxes. That's
Yeah,
kind
okay.
of the goal of it. Now, that can be a problem because a lot of folks, maybe fall under the tax brackets where they would actually be paying that extra 1/3 towards taxes. But that's neither here nor there.
I didn't think about that. Right, those
Oh,
people are
yeah.
going to get that tax money back at the end of the year anyways.
But they don't, because they're only
they-
getting their 2/3.
Because they're only getting the workers' comp stuff.
But what's interesting
Wow.
about the 2/3 is there's a maximum, okay? And there's a maximum in every state. So meaning if you make, a bunch of money, you're making $10,000 a week, 2/3 of that would be $6,666.67, depending on how you do your math, right?
Right.
But you're not getting that. The maximum that you're going to get is $800 a week.
Wow.
Right.
And before this legislative update, it was even less than that.
It was $725 for a year.
Okay.
As of 2022, they increased it to $725. Before that, for a couple of years, it was $675. For a while, it was $575.
I remember those times.
They bump it up, every few years. That's something that, as a claimant's attorney, right, we push for it to be bumped up because we think it should be in line with essentially what people make, right? So most states, what they'll do is they'll base it on, well, here's the average income for anybody in the state.
Right.
And so let's cap it. We'll put the max comp rate at 2/3 of that average income. Well, the Georgia now at 800 is not really based on anything.
Oh.
It's kind of just based on, well, we're going to increase it from where it was last time.
We're just going to give you a raise, just a little bump.
Just because we're feeling generous.
So if I'm a big, manager at a big box store and I make, $150,000 a year and one of the shelves falls over on me, I don't get 2/3 of what I'm making. I just get $800.
You get $800 a week.
And you're going to starve.
And that was a raise from where they were at.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
was it before?
It was
Seven
at
something.
725
Yeah.
up
Right.
until July 1st of this year. Now it's 800.
So we're not really going to cover everything out there.
No, at that point, you hope that you were living well below your means, and if you weren't, you're going to have some bills to catch up on.
And I always feel like really workers' comp is to protect the company and not
Yeah.
really to protect the individual. It's so that I can kill you, hurt you, maim you, and I'm only responsible for paying you, this little bitty portion of what it's worth.
That's all we can get, right? You pay for the employees' medical bills, and you pay them that maximum of $800. It might be less than that, depending on what they were making, and that's it. They can't sue you for getting them hurt in a negligence.
So I'm Tim
action.
Tebow, and I lose 2 fingers, and I can't throw that football anymore. $800.
Hope you like your $800. Yeah.
All right.
On the flip side, just to take the devil's advocate position, though,
Which you love to do.
which I love to do, but on the flip side, you don't have to prove that it was somebody's fault, right? Fault is always a big part of when I'm handling a personal injury case. Like establishing liability is always a problem. But in a workers' comp case, like you don't have to prove it was somebody's fault.
Yeah, I mean, and that's essentially what the trade-off is supposed to be, right? It's a no-fault system, so you don't have to prove that you got hurt at work because your employer did something wrong, right? If you're lifting a box at work and you hurt your back, nobody caused that. It's not their fault, but they still have to pay you the workers' comp benefits. So
now, did they increase the death benefit as well?
They increased the
to something good like $3, $4, $5 million, what a person's life is actually
definitely
worth.
not. Yeah. So it's funny you say that. So they did increase the maximum amount that a surviving spouse can get.
Okay.
What does that even mean? Hang on.
All right. So we'll back up. Right.
Okay.
You're married.
I am married
to a wonderful woman, by the way.
Yes.
We're not going to use her as an example because I don't want to kill her in my hypothetical.
Okay, please don't.
But let's say your name
Jim.
is
We'll call him Jim.
Yeah, right,
All
Jim.
right.
And Jim is married to Jane, right?
Okay.
And Jim's at work and he gets killed in a workplace injury. Right?
Okay.
Jane is now entitled to workers' comp death benefits, which still follows that same 2/3 and the maximum of $800 a week.
So she could be entitled to $800 a week, assuming he made more than 130% of that?
Correct. So
Okay.
she'll get that $800 a week. However, if she's the only dependent, there's no kids or the kids are adults, she's going to get a maximum of now $320,000 a year total. Not a year,
Ever.
sorry, ever.
Ever.
Whoa. Okay, so
Not 3 or 4 million. That'd be
so
lovely.
if my company puts me up on a forklift and holds me up over the thing, and I fall to my death,
Yeah.
then I'm 21 years old and got a wife and a baby
Well,
at home.
just a wife.
Well, just the wife.
Just the
Okay,
wife.
Just the wife. All she gets is
$800 a week.
$800 a week.
That's it.
Once it gets to 320,
that's it.
they're
Right.
cutting her off.
So I can't
doesn't cover-
do the math in my head, but $800 a week, it'd take quite a while to get to $320,000. It'd be 10 something years, right?
So I haven't done the math on it either. I have no idea.
I think that's about right. Somewhere between 10 and 15 years. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, by then she ought to be able to find another beau, right?
Good question, right? But
What if this was the love of her life, a soulmate per se?
yeah,
Okay, but
Bob.
say Jane is a practical woman, right?
Jane, she's got needs.
Right.
She needs
We
to
all
pay her
have
bills.
needs.
She
That's
needs
right.
companionship.
That's right.
So maybe she finds somebody, and we hope that she does. What happens then? Okay.
They
If
cut
she-
her off,
Well, they cut her off.
right? She gets remarried.
Right. If she gets remarried, right? So we did.
Can't she just live with her boyfriend then?
Well, maybe, but maybe not. So they changed the statute, and what it used to say is that if you enter into a meretricious relationship,
Shut your mouth. Meretricious? What does that even
meretricious.
mean?
It means you and your paramour are living together.
As if you're married.
Right.
as if you're married, you're
So
sharing
marriage
expenses.
like.
You're holding each other out as each other's paramour. Great
Right.
word. They changed the statute, which says that the insurance company can still stop Jane's benefits if she's in such a relationship. But they've got to prove it.
They
Okay.
have to prove that
So
she's...
are they putting like private eyes on the ground to go look and check and
They
see?
do that, yeah.
This
they
has
do that.
been known to happen.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the purpose
Dirty dogs.
of one of the good things we hope about this change, and the change has only been enacted for a few weeks now, but one of the things we hope about this change that will help is to reduce that.
Okay.
Is to reduce the insurance company sending a private investigator to spy on the 75-year-old widow that's maybe shacking up with somebody.
Okay.
Where Henry comes by and brings her honey once a week, and
Right.
they hang out and talk about the
It's going to have to be a lot of honey, I think, to make it a
Okay.
meretricious relationship. What was interesting about that, though, is it used to be that on the front end, right, it didn't matter if you were in a meretricious relationship. So if Jim and Jane were not married, but living together, sharing expenses, right?
As
if they
I
were
see.
married, right?
Okay.
And Jim gets killed at work. Jane is out of luck. She
And
gets
I've had
nothing.
people call about that before, and I was like, "You weren't married. There's nothing."
Sorry.
You know.
Well, now Jane has the opportunity with this change of the statute. She's got the opportunity to prove her dependency.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is
Good-
interesting.
Good one to know.
It sounds to me like your claimants bar in the advisory committee was hard at work this year.
We got something done.
Now, does that cover same-sex marriages as well, and same-sex relationships, or is that just
Great question. Used to not,
okay?
right? Now it can, right? You just have to establish dependency.
Okay.
You don't have to establish dependency and that they were of the opposite sex.
So not that they had to go get married officially, just that they were dependent and legal. Okay.
Yeah, the statute before the change actually used to say, again on the back end, right?
After they've already established dependency.
Right.
Right.
That if Jane gets together with a person of the opposite sex in a meretricious relationship, well, then her benefits get cut off. So the question becomes with that is, well,
What if Jane is shaking up with
Sally,
Sally?
right?
Right.
So that's not constitutional
Right.
because same-sex marriage is
Legal.
legal.
Right.
So I think that kind of prompted the change. I wasn't in the room when it happened, but I think that's kind of what prompted the change to the statute is, you know,
So
Very
each side
interesting.
wanted something out
each
of
side
changing
wanted
it.
something, right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to, the insurance companies, I assume, didn't want to have a challenge in court on the
Right.
constitutionality of that statute because, hey, they're going to have to keep paying Jane.
But
If
now a
it's-
lot more people will be available for like a death benefit that wouldn't have before, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, from what I remember, back in the days when I did workers' comp almost exclusively, was that like if you're a spouse, if you're actually married, there's like a presumption of dependency,
Right.
right? And what they're changing now, but if you were not a spouse, like you just did not
Right.
get anything, no matter what. And so they've kind of this new legislative update or this new legislation basically says, okay, if you're a spouse, you know, presumptively a dependent, then you can get those survivor's benefits. If you're not a spouse, you could prove that you were a dependent.
You
So-
got the chance at least.
Yeah.
Who's the
Okay.
burden on to prove that?
I think the burden would be on the dependent or the
Okay.
person
Right.
claiming dependency. in
Unless they're a
order
spouse.
To prove
Right.
that. Unless
Right.
they're a spouse. At
They're
that
already-
point,
yeah.
it's a presumption.
That's right.
They're going to pay that person because
Yeah.
they were legally married, right? But yeah, if it's just, you know, you're shacking up and your significant other passes away, whether it's same-sex relationship or not, you can go and try to establish your dependency. Show them your bills. Show them that you're both on the same, you know, lease
Right.
or whatever it might be.
Now, if you have a child with that person, that child is presumptively a dependent.
Yeah.
And so you could receive money for the child if you were the mother of the child, but you'd have to spend that money for the child, right?
So
Yeah,
you
it's the
think you're going to
child's
see
money.
people going, well, I was really staying at the house with him too. Wink, wink.
I
Let's work
they-
something out.
They might try, but
Yeah.
you know, I think you're going to have. There's going to be a battle because
Like the
it's
proof
not
is in the
really-
pudding.
Right.
Right. You
And
have to
it's-
prove it.
You know, there's not been any. It's brand new, right?
Right.
So there's
Nobody
not been any
knows.
kind of litigation on it yet. So we'll see what the judges think that you need to have to prove it.
So I'm a huge fan of jury trials, as everybody knows. I don't think there should be any other trials but jury trials. Do you get a jury trial? Who makes that determination?
There is no jury trial
In a workers' comp
in a
case.
workers' comp case. There's no jury in workers' comp.
So
So who's calling
So how
those
does it-
shots? Who's
how does it
deciding who's?
There are some incredible expert workers' comp administrative law judges, and they're appointed. I think I want to say 17 or 18 or 19.
There's
of
a
them.
bunch.
There's
Sure.
a bunch throughout the state, and
They're
they
all
hear.
very well pedigreed and very well learned.
Absolutely.
they're
Yes.
all in the industry, right?
They know what they're doing. And
Yeah.
the thing about it is you get a judge, right, that's going to hear a custody case and a murder case and a divorce case and a personal injury case.
Sometimes they know a lot about one area and nothing about
Right.
anything else.
Right.
So the real benefit we have is our judges are workers' comp judges. They hear workers' comp cases and that's it.
yeah.
So
And they
you
know about medical issues because they're reading medical
Yeah.
reports pretty well all the time, right?
Yeah, they see it day in, day out.
That was my experience when I tried cases in workers' comp, was that the judges, you may disagree with how they came down, but you could never argue really that they weren't paying attention because the decisions that they write are so thorough they're so like well documented. Like you can't say they weren't like paying attention.
Yeah.
You might disagree with their conclusions.
Absolutely, yeah. But they get the facts. They
get the
understand
facts.
what's going on,
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
right.
But yeah, no juries, which, I know you love juries. I've never had it any other way, so I don't know.
So you can't go in there and just piss off the judge and be like, I don't care, judge. The jury's going to make the determination.
Yeah.
You don't get that option.
I not that I wouldn't be otherwise, but I try to be as nice to the judges as I can.
I don't mean to get in trouble. I just do.
Well, thank you for joining us for another episode. Hey, Brian, like if somebody gets injured at work, like how can they get in touch with you?
Man, you can call me at Slappy and Sadd. You can look us up online. We're lawyersAtlanta.com.
Slappy. Slappy.
Slappy, Slappey, and
We'll have your links down below.
Yeah.
Right? You can call me.
The thing I love about Brian is he always talks to his clients. This is the way we all are, the three of us at least up here.
Yeah.
Like we talk to our people, we take care of our people.
Most important thing.
Yep. Thanks for joining us. Make sure that you subscribe. Click on the whatever that button icon is that means subscribe, so that you can make sure that every time we drop an episode, you're getting notified.
Appreciate it. Good job.
All right.
All right.
I didn't
Nice
know
job.
that.
Thanks,
I
guys.
learned something.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next time when Bob and Irreverent D talk law.